So, Matt, are you ready to record?
Recording.
Okay. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. This is Apache OpenWhisk technical interchange call. These are agendas for today, and it seems there is no new attendee, so I'll move on. Since today we only have one scheduled topic from Mike, so I will briefly summarize topics on dev list and recent PRs over the last 2 weeks. Is it okay? And the first one is from Dave. This is to remove old Whisk CLI-based installation script. And the next one is from Mike. He added KNATIVE support for action loop. And third one is from Bill. This is to enable the CPU-based scheduling. Actually, this change is quite a big change, so I wanted to invite Bill to this meeting, but he didn't answer. Hopefully, we can invite him to the next meeting. The next one is from Daskalita. He wanted to add some libraries in Node.js runtime. And the last one is from Chetan. Since currently it takes about more than 50 minutes to learn all system tests, so he wants to segregate some standalone tests from the existing tracks job. And these are recent peers. I excluded the one I mentioned in the previous page. And first one is from Tyson. He added a functionality to skip storing activation result. And the second one is from Chetan. This is to refactor ActiveAC implementation to make it more testable. And third one is also from Chetan. He added some user event support in OpenWhisk standalone mode. The fourth one is from Seunghyun. He fixed a bug in user events JVM option. And the next one is from Matthew. He updated documentation about provide API key configuration. And the next one is from Chetan. He wants to log some document size and RU usage in Cosmos DB. And the next one is from Roderick to remove some dead code. And the next one is from Seunghyun. This is to add a functionality to let users know the time that the entities are updated. And Mark added a Maven dependency to publish user event module. And Chetan added a retry logic for standalone mode running in Mac host. And Jonathan tried to change our temporary project directories from temp to bar temp. And Roderick fixed regression from user events. And the last one is from Chetan to update Cosmos DB SDK. Is there any opinion or a question so far?
This is a good list. Thanks for going through it.
Okay. Okay, so there is only one topic. KNATIVE support for action loop from Mike. Mike, are you ready to share?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm ready to share. So let me start the sharing and share desktop. Okay, and now you should. Okay, can you see the screen? Can you see the screen? No, yeah. One moment, I have to click on the share button, but okay, let me try again. Share. Okay, now play. Oh, now should be. Now you should see it, right? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So this is actually not a very big work, because it took me a lot of time, because I had to learn a lot about the KNATIVE, build an environment, and play, learn about registries. So it took me many months to do this small thing, but more for learning about KNATIVE than for doing the actual implementation. Anyway, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? That is not alone, because there's already a port of the Node.js, the Node.js runtime to KNATIVE. I did something similar using action loop. That is the proxy that is behind the Go proxy, and also used by the Rust, PHP, Python, and many others. So the problem is that in KNATIVE we have to run in the serving module of KNATIVE. We have to run ready-to-go images that must be extracted by the registry and must be immediately available to run. And this is a requirement by design of KNATIVE. The idea in KNATIVE that is slightly different from OpenWhisk is that there is the KNATIVE module, or the KNATIVE building module, that will take care of preparing the image. Actually, the KNATIVE building is now phased out, is obsolete, and that will be replaced by TEKTON pipelines. So I used actually TEKTON pipelines to build. So I had to cover the gap between OpenWhisk, that in the actions must be initialized before being used, and make sure that they work like in KNATIVE, that after an image is built, is immediately ready to go. Actually, the initialization in OpenWhisk can be complicated, and in Go and Rust, pretty complex because it involves compilation. So it does a lot of work. Luckily, I did a long time ago a feature that lets you to precompile actions, so you can just run the same runtime as a compiler to produce an already precompiled images. And I am going to leverage this feature for doing the KNATIVE build. So if you run inside a TEKTON pipeline this step, this precompilation step, you get a precompiled action that is ready to be deployed, normally through an init to the runtime. So the missing link is that the idea is that we can simply take this precompiled action, put inside a Docker image to get the runtime, basically extend the runtime with these precompiled actions, and then ensure that you initialize when you start the runtime, the Docker image of the runtime. And so the change I did to the code of OpenWhisk, of the runtime of action loop, is to add an environment variable, OW autoinit, that will point to the precompiled action that you can use. So if in Docker images there is this precompiled action, just this environment variable is set, the proxy will automatically initialize the image. So we can get an image that will immediately start, that is initialized as KNATIVE requires. So using this feature, I created a KNATIVE build. That is actually the example is included also in the patch, that will extract the sources, that is automatically done by KNATIVE, by the TEKTON build, from a Git source Then the compilation is done by the runtime itself. Then there is a Dockerfile that I have to use a build step. I used the build kit in my example. Previously, I tried to use Canico that is horribly slow. Build kit is better. And finally, you have to set auto init. So just to show a bit of code, the trick is to create a TEKTON build that executes, as you can see, the compile command, and this is executed automatically by the TEKTON build after it downloads the Git sources, and it will produce the exec zip that will contain the precompiled action. Then it executes a build and push that is basically executing a Docker build, and then there is a snippet of the Docker file that is used that will use the runtime as basis, add the new executable, add the precompiled action, and then I set the auto init function, and that's it. So now there is an example there is an example that has there are two scripts. One will set up the TEKTON pipeline build, and another that will execute the actual build invoking a task run. I don't go into the details of KNATIVE because I don't know how much they are interesting, but the result is this one. I made an experiment saving an action on GitHub. Then I ran a build, and this build will create an image that is stored also on Docker Hub. And you can see the steps in the build when it will initialize, download the sources, execute the compilation, build the image, and save it. And the image is ready to be used for KNATIVE. That's basically the same thing now available. So we have a node that can do the KNATIVE build, and now we can do also this with Go, with Python, with Java, with Swift, with Rust, with PHP. So I ported basically 5 or 6 languages in a step to KNATIVE, and this can be very useful because, as far as I know, there's some work ongoing to create the famous proxy, the new controller, the new don't know what is it, it's a router. A new router that will use KNATIVE actions for OpenWhisk. Okay, that's it.
I think you opened a pull request for this. Are there any other next steps?
No, sorry. Can you, the next step for what, sorry?
So you opened a pull request for this, correct?
Yes, there is a pull request open, and I expect that someone merge it, review and merge it.
So my only concern is that this is different than what we did for Node.js. When we talked about back, in I think May, June timeframe. I understand what you've done, and I like it. It's just different than what we did for Node.js, and I think that what we tried to do for Node.js was preserve the contract. And I'm just concerned about having this. We had a lot of pre and post processing for the requests that came in to assure that the contract is preserved with KNATIVE for the function in terms of where environment variables are placed and how they are named and all those things. I do all those things as well.
I don't understand. What's the problem? Preserve which contact? The runtime is ready to go as before. So the only difference is now is when you
running in KNATIVE, there's no container proxy, so there's nothing that actually prepares the environment and copies all the variables and makes sure all the parameters are set and all those things. And we spend a lot of time running processing and post-processing requests, and also to fix up.
No, 1 second. You don't have to set the environment variable. The environment variable is in the Docker image you created. You create a new Docker images. This Docker images as set when you build the that environment variable. So the image is ready. You do Docker pull, run it, and it automatically starts. Internally, it will use the precombined actions and initialize, but the step is very fast because the action is already precombined, so all it does is launch it and start because there's a...
Well, if you have explicit things in your service YAML, they get copied to the environment as you name them in your service YAML, yes. But there are other things from the HTTP header and other things like that are copied as well. Do you do those things?
Not sure about that because I should understand what you mean because probably I missed something, but I did my test and was working in KNATIVE, just starting in.
Yeah, well, it works in KNATIVE, so all you gotta hit it on port 8080 and it works. So that, yeah, that's easy. That's an easy test to make sure it works. And of course, environment variables are copied over and available from the service YAML. But I'm still saying that there's extra things to be done to maintain the service contract that we had to do in Node.js that I didn't hear you talk about today.
No problem. Let me understand if I can understand better this thing because just point me some documentation. And,
so back in May, June, we met actually offline. We showed you the interface because we knew you were going to set about doing this work. And we showed you all the things in the interface that we did for pre-processing and post-processing and asked to make sure you did those things. So if you did not, maybe we should meet again and go over them again.
Okay, no problem. No, because I'm not sure about these steps because, but anyway, I don't think it's here the place to discuss this. So when you can provide me more information, let me know so I can.
Well, I'll send you the link to the interface. You can see what we've done.
Yeah, but I understood that the pre-processing and post-processing were basically the same thing I was doing with the compile step in my work because. But I can review everything and we check to understand better. No problem.
So I think if I understood, I guess there's two parts here. One is just getting the code into the container and building it properly as KNATIVE expects. And then there's the all the work that the proxy currently does to normalize for the KNATIVE interface. Sounds like the latter part exists for Node, but not for this action loop. Is that accurate, Matt? Did I summarize my?
Yeah, that's exactly that's a good summary. Exactly. I like the approach where we have a uniformly named exec.zip. I like the fact that we have a uniform flag to indicate that that to the proxy that the init's basically been handled and that the codes have been copied someplace uniformly. But, that's all cool. So I think we handle the second part, then we have a straightforward approach.
In terms of, so Michele, he did open a PR. Matt, does it make sense for you to take over that? Because I'm not really familiar with KNATIVE, so I don't know if I'm qualified to review it anyway.
Well, if you look to the PR, the only real change to the code is that I added the auto init function to automatically initialize, and nothing else. All the rest is a KNATIVE build. So actually, I spend a lot of time trying to understand KNATIVE, but it's very complicated to set up, to understand. There's a lot of issues, registries, build kit, Kanico is a very big thing.
This is very timely because we're actually completing a TEKTON pipeline where we created a separate flag similar to your OpenWhisk auto init thing. So that's actually we're actually coding that in TEKTON this week. A pipeline to do these things. So it's interesting.
Anyway, so my understanding is that is what is really needed. But of course, maybe I'm missing something is that I can try to cover the gap as long as I understand exactly the difference. Probably it's not necessary because I know that the Node.js has a different processing, but we are referring to the other proxy of Node.js. I'm talking about the proxy I did that is somewhat similar, I think, because I know that there are some hooks in Node.js that do some steps, and probably they are not needed because as action loop works, starting an executable, then feeding back and forth a stream of JSON. So I will review. I'm too convinced that it's okay this way, but of course I can be wrong and open to understand better.
Yeah, I have a table I had to compile. There is like it's 2 slides of a table, a bunch of rows of things that we must do to maintain the contract, and these are all things we had to do in pre and post processing of the HTTP request.
I have seen that slides, but what I understood that those were interfaces for Node.js. The actual loop that use Node.
Yeah, I know. I think that's my contention is that the action loop proxy probably needs to do that uniformly for all. If it's going to become the proxy, it probably needs to consider doing all those things for all the languages.
Okay. Fine.
I have another comment related to action loop. I noticed that all of our new runtimes, I think, are using the new action loop proxy. Does it make sense to, in the next release, rename all the runtimes to drop action loop? I think is the distinction important.
Probably, if you think it's okay, I have nothing against this.
Well, I think we have a problem with Java, though. We have a problem with Java for sure.
There was a reason because many runtimes were named action. Then to distinguish some variation of the existing, some were called action, and so I added action loop to have the same runtime with a different prefix. But this is the only reason because there is this name.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of things with Java going forward to find the shared cache.
Yeah.
And
Java,
and we're also going to be doing some things in terms of intelligent class filtering, so we don't cache things we don't want to cache. So those are things that would probably not be possible with the action loop.
Yes. Yeah. No. Actually, in theory, it could be possible. The runtime I built is not using Java caching because actually the problem is my ignorance because I am not familiar. But from what I learned recently from your discussions, probably use also caching also in the actual loop for Java. I just have to spend some time on it to understand better how it works. But because the way it works, it creates a class path, and the Java caching works on the class path, it should be possible to add also the precompiled jar to the pre-cached.
No, everything's possible in code. I'm just saying that in terms of build steps, we're talking,
the build step of a Java actual loop only builds a Java.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is like with TEKTON, we're trying to add layers where we're trying to add profiles. So we're trying to add framework support also to Java. So eventually we'll have a Spring runtime, a Micronaut runtime, a Quarkus runtime, things like that. This is expected by the Java community. And so things are done differently depending on what JVM you use and what framework you add. And so there's multiple steps perhaps to the compilation process. We're actually looking at breaking apart the Dockerfile now in stages and trying to maybe do that with a pipeline. So anything is possible in code. The proxy could do anything eventually in the end. The question, the question is, do we need to examine all the use cases first and make sure we're working together?
Yes. Yeah, I think, but from what I know, should be possible because after you added all the jars of Spring and other layers, the last step is to execute the compile script that will actually compile Java. It's just a small wrapper around Java C to build the final jar. The only thing you should do is to add to the class part of the compiler the other things you have specified. So it could be necessary a small change in the compile script, but after this, it should be possible to do that.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm willing to accept there may be some things peculiar about the Java runtime for optimization purposes, and it needs its own proxy in Java. But I think all of our other runtimes, excluding Node, and let's set aside Java for now, are using the action loop proxy. Is it worthwhile making a distinction in the name of having the loop there versus just action? Are we intend to make a distinction that's important?
Yeah, that it's not that in those cases it's probably not important if there's only a single proxy for those languages.
It's up to you to decide.
Probably not important.
I am agnostic to this decision.
I think it's more important. I think going forward, when naming is a good question, because when I talk about it's more about perhaps the framework and the libraries, the profile that comes with it. So we probably need to think, the proxy should not be part of the naming convention. No. Okay. What's important is what frameworks and libraries or profiles are included with that, with the core runtime, core language runtime.
Yes, but the fact is that the action loop is much faster for Python, for Ruby, and also for Java in my tests. The only languages that works very quickly without action loop are Node and C#. I don't know why also the Java one is very short, very slow, but it's very slow. If you put action loop, you get 10 times improvement in saving HTTP requests.
Well, it's because it's loading the entire rt.jar file. So if you pre-cache the entire rt.jar file,
I think is they use
stuff. If that's all pre-cached, you can get equivalent performance, I'm sure. But,
probably
that's water under the bridge.
I think if they use something like Jetty or other, can be much faster because they use the embedded HTTP in JDK that I think is very slow. So it should be re-implementing the way if the original one works. But anyway, my action loop just use the action loop protocol. So it just read the standard input, standard output, and that are fed by the proxy. That's it. Anyway. Okay.
I have one question about the change. Does it imply that there will be dedicated Docker images for each action?
This one KNATIVE thing will create a new images for each action.
And that is a different approach because we do that with Node.js now, but we also allow for stem cell for the injection as well. So we actually have we allow the init to still be accepting KNATIVE. So we can bake in the final thing and that's it. Or also we can actually create the stem cell or whatever it is and allow the injective function. So we have that in our Node.js implementation.
Yes, what I concern is if there are tons of Docker images for each action, then maybe the system should manage all those images. Because functions may run on some commodity hardware which doesn't have enough disk space or memory or something.
Yeah. So what we did first, go ahead.
I've heard two things about this space.
Yeah. So what we did is we basically used the same port 8080, the single entry point in KNATIVE, and we just built a sim cell like we normally do. And all we did was we basically used the same port instead of having a /init route, a /run route. We just used the base route at port 8080, and we basically just overloaded it. And if we could send it, we send it a init message, so we could use it exactly the way we do in OpenWhisk today.
I do the same. My TEKTON build uses as a basis image the existing runtime images, so the only layer you add is only one, and that is the one containing the code of the action and nothing else. Everything else is as before. So it will take as much space as a new compiled action. That is, at least for Go, very small. So.
But I'm saying I eliminated the build step. You're saying you're building another layer with the exec zip on top of it. I'm saying we don't require that. We can just run the base image, and we accept instead of having a init message at a init route, we just have that. We can send the init message in a named init. We put it inside a JSON key named init, and we can initialize it the way we do today. We just have to move the init code one layer down under a key to init it. So we don't have to recompile. We don't have to rebuild.
You don't have in Node, but we have to recompile in Go and in Rust and in Swift. We have to compile to run. Anyway, fine. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we need a comprehensive look at as a group and document for KNATIVE what the contract is, and if we want to allow re-init, you know, what the messages now look like. Instead of having, we don't have an init run route, how do we combine these two routes together, and what does the messages look like? We need to agree on that as a community.
Okay.
Okay, so should we move on to the next item? To just decide the coordinator for next call. Is it okay?
October 16th, I can do it.
Okay, thank you, Longo.
Thanks, Roderick. You beat me.
Okay, it's done.
All right. Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.